مجلة هذا الأسبوع عالم السرعة والتشويق وسباق السيارات. أهلا بكم مشاهدينا، أنا كورين فرحات أرحب بكم وأنقلكم إلى عالم السرعة وسباق السيارات وإلى ولاية فلوريدا بالتحديد. نتعرف في هذا الحوار الخاص مع ميشيل رحال على تاريخ عائلته العريق في عالم سباق السيارات. فعائلة رحال هي أول عائلة عربية أمريكية احترفت سباق السيارات في أوائل الخمسينات في الولايات المتحدة مع إد رحال الذي نقل شغفه إلى أولاده وأحفاده لاحقاً.
Every day of my life I think about it. Every night of my life I think about it. If the money were there, absolutely no hesitation, I would do it again, and I would be damn good at it. You truly have to learn to lose before you know how to win. And that's early days when you're in your career. You have to put yourself in a position where, okay, I'm the first loser if I came in second. But what lessons did I take away from that, and what will I apply those lessons for my next go-round? Because to win, you have to imagine yourself on the podium. The adrenaline of racing an automobile or testing a car, it's always there, but you're thinking on two levels. When you're in a race, you have to have the autonomic responses down, which is the basic braking, downshifting, being able to hold your line or come offline. You have to have those autonomic responses down, but the second half of your brain is actually in a chess match, and that's where the adrenaline comes from. It isn't from the pure speed, it's from actual competition.
I have always been involved with the car scene, and this goes to my first Matchbox car, but I've been fascinated by everything with wheels.
My passion for cars started around the age of 3 years old when I received my first Matchbox cars from my grandmother. I was totally fascinated by the little blue and yellow boxes in the cars that were inside. They were like little treasures. And from there, I would run them on the carpet, pretending all the designs on the big Arabic carpets were like roads and stuff. And it just picked up from there. There was a man who was photographing a classic Ferrari, and he was just adjusting everything, lighting it, going in for details and everything like that. And I asked him, I said, what are you shooting for? And he said, for Road and Track magazine. And I'm sitting there and thinking, wow, there's a job to shoot pictures of cars like this. I had incidentally become interested in photography, and next thing you know, I'm out photographing some of my model cars.
A painful experience, incredibly painful, because we didn't have the money that others had. And there's a opinion that everybody just doesn't seem to want to come out and say, but it's the truth. When you run out of cash, they take you out of the game. You know, my father, Ed Rahal, was my idol because he taught me everything that I knew up to the point of my first racing school, which I dominated. I just ran away from everybody else. But I could drive proficiently an automatic when I was 8 years old. Well, by the time I'd hit 11, I could heel, toe, and downshift. All this was as a result of what I saw my father doing. I was 3 years old. No one had televisions back in the 50s. We did. We were lucky. We had a black and white. I saw him win the CBS television classic. I remember distinctly, like it was yesterday, yelling at the television screen, "Daddy," my father's name, as if he could hear me. And of course he couldn't. But at that moment, I was a done deal. We actually pride ourselves on being the first Lebanese-American, Arab-American family in motorsports in the United States of America. My father, in 1952, he had come back from the war. He was a Marine. He fought in World War II. He landed on Iwo Jima, was part of the occupation of Japan, then got called back up to North Korea and was trapped at the Chosin Reservoir, fought their way out. He bought an MGTD, old car, 1952, first race, Hunter Army Airfield, car blew up. But the bug he got. And once he got that bug, that was that. He ended up racing for one of the factory teams for Arnold Bristol, for the Jaguar. We had a Jaguar D-Type, number 58 of 62 made. He was absolutely deadly in that car. He drove with Graham Shaw in the Cobras at Daytona. He just became one of the, my Uncle Mike, Bob's father, pinned him perfectly. He is the greatest driver that he has ever seen who didn't turn professional. And he was. He won the CBS Television Classic, the first road race ever broadcast on television. This was at Daytona in front of the entire world, so it was a beautiful thing. After that happened, after he raced, 4 years later, Uncle Mike, called him Uncle Mike, Bob's dad, he started racing. Then later on, Bob started racing. After Bob, I started racing. After me, Charles started racing, Charles Rahal. And then Graham Rahal. And then Sean Rahal. So we now have two active Rahals who are competing in two different sports, one in IndyCar and the other in World Endurance Racing. So I think we've got all the bases covered, and we're very proud of the fact that we're the first family to have done it, but certainly not the last.
About 3 years ago, I had Daniel Murad contact me asking if he can get a ride to drive in our GT3 Cup car up in Canada. And I spoke to him a little bit on the phone and looked at his website, saw that he had a tremendous resume. He was in Europe racing. He was one of the Red Bull Junior drivers. So I asked him to go ahead and fly down and to meet with us, meet the team and look at the car and everything. And after meeting him, I really was impressed with him. So I asked him to go ahead and drive with us for the year. And he did a phenomenal job. Daniel, among with other Arab drivers that I've seen, are tremendous talents. I used to think sometimes it was just Canadian drivers, but it's not. I mean, it comes from, I believe, the descent, being Arab. I can't tell you. I don't know what it is, what drives them so hard to be at that top level, to be so successful. But just something. We grew up with, had tremendous talent to be able to wheel a car around the track. The talent that we're seeing now is more of a precise talent where you're taking every little bit you can to make the car go fast as a driver. It's funny, when I first started about, what was it, almost 30 years ago, everything was manual shift in race cars. And now, I've seen the transition from where you go to manual shift to sequential gearbox to now we're seeing paddle shifts in the car. It's absolutely amazing, and it's kind of interesting where you see these younger kids where they're used to playing video games and the response time with the paddle shift, they're just really good at it. And technology has really come a long ways to the point now where these type of technology is becoming more and more reliable.
I'm drawing from all the experiences and all the cultural DNA that my parents have given to me and my grandparents on both sides have given to them. And every time I look at a situation that I have to photograph, I'm looking for the best way and the stylish way to use what I've learned through all these years of looking at other images and looking at the arts in our culture. So that plays a really big role in how I depict my world.
When we write a car review, first of all, the review is a criticism of the car. There's no such thing as a bad car these days. But there are certain things sometimes that bother us when we look at a car. And it's not just me, it's every person who writes about cars, whether you're a blogger or an actual car critic for a magazine or something. I try to tell the story in two different ways. I'm laying out the words that are describing, painting the picture in your mind. And then through those, I will use the pictures that I shoot to reinforce the message that my story has hopefully brought across. For instance, if I'm talking about the fluid shape of a dashboard and how it's flowing downward. I'll try to show that curve. It's almost like, you know, you're looking at a woman's hip, and you want to show the beauty that's in that line. So that's what I look for, details like that. I've been on many great trips to see the latest and greatest from various manufacturers. We were driving on snow-covered roads, we had studded tires. The time frame, you had 4 hours of daylight. So you would get up in 7 in the morning, go out and drive, and by 11 o'clock in the morning, all your light was gone, and it was as though you were driving at midnight again. But it made for some incredible scenes and incredible memories.
بعد الفاصل عالم السرعة والتشويق وسباق السيارات. أهلا بكم مشاهدينا، أنا كورين فرحات أرحب بكم من فلوريدا. نلقي الضوء على تاريخ عائلة رحال في عالم السرعة وسباق السيارات، ونتعرف أيضا على عرب تركوا بصماتهم في هذا العالم الشيق. يحدثنا أيضا المصور مارك إلياس عن كيفية تصوير السيارات والسباقات، وما هي التقنيات التي يستخدمها لالتقاط صور ناجحة رغم السرعة أو العوامل الخارجية.
Hi, I'm Michelle Rahal with MichelleRahal.com and Ventu Media. Okay, you go to your high school class reunion. I've always been a raconteur, provocateur. The people that you see on, let's just say Facebook, for instance, it's always some sort of thing that I've tossed in there to cause chaos. And it was the same thing in auto racing, but being able to talk about it, I don't have a problem talking about it, but I'm very opinionated. Every show that I ever did, particularly in radio, it was pure opinion. There was no real reporting there. I didn't much care about what happened. I wanted to be able to give my opinion on what happened. And that's just, let's just call it a Rahal thing.
And everybody doesn't agree with it, but you know what? There were people that died for me to be able to do that. And for that, I give my eternal thanks.
Yes, no doubt. So
some of my opinions were just a little too brash for radio. I was co-host of Race Day on Fox Sports Radio for 7 years and had a great run and really enjoyed it. Got in trouble a few times, mainly because of me. And I did a few videos NASCAR didn't appreciate, and they sort of excommunicated me, and that's okay. When I had the offer, the ability to go to radio, I did that. But prior to that, I went into the insurance side of racing. And in retrospect, I probably would rather have bamboo shoots stuck under my fingernails than ever have to do that again. The sponsorship side is a different story. There was some excitement there. I was able to interact with drivers, teams, and able to match the sponsorship up with a particular driver and team. So there was interaction. It was good. I enjoyed it. But it was still the same thing. Every time the driver would leave the pits, I still felt a sinking feeling and wish it was me.
Yep, there he is. There you are. Hey, what's going on? Oh, there. Okay, now you can see me. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. It's a nice shave there. I like that. I bring Gabe Matchbox cars. Gee, go figure, right? And he started playing the same thing. He'd do the slot cars, then he'd do the radio control cars, and finally, when he was in high school, he scrapped together enough money to go out and buy a Nissan 240 SX, which was the typical Fast and Furious drift car. Nothing special to it. And he turned around and he modified it. He dropped the turbocharged engine into it, had the body kit installed. He helped the painter paint the car, and it became good enough to be featured in Super Street magazine.
Well, what's going on?
That started him off. And after he graduated from high school, he went to the University of Miami and got a mechanical engineering degree. Then he was off to American Honda, where he was working in their R&D facility as a design engineer. And after being there for a few years, he said, "Dad, it's time to go off and get my master's. I want to get into racing." And I said, "Where are you going to go get that?" And he said, "In England." And I said, "Well, Dad's tapped out." And he said, don't worry, I'm going to take a loan." And he went to Oxford Brookes in England and got a master's in race engineering. And his thesis was written up in the SAE Journal. And a few weeks later, Mercedes AMG Formula One called him up, and the rest is history. There's a lot of Arabs in the automotive industry, and it's kind of exciting to see. Carlos Ghosn is he's visionary. He's an amazing character, and he is a character. But the bottom line is, he has helped to bring many different car companies back from near death, and has kind of put them all together again. Karim Habib, from his original start at BMW and then going to Mercedes-Benz, where he started with the CLA and the A-Class, and then bringing it into the GLA. I think he had something to do with that. And then returning to BMW, and now going to Infiniti. He's leaving little droppings everywhere, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does with the Infiniti brand next.
The Middle Eastern journalism on social media, they're usually very high-end automobiles and very fast, and it is they're very thorough with it, and drifting seems to be huge, and drag racing seems to be huge. I think with tracks now, like in Bahrain and areas like that, we will see a growth. I think a rapid growth in the Middle East, depending on how the global economy goes. I think we're going to see a real surge in the number of journalists, but also the number of drivers in the Middle East. So what you find in the Middle East are tracks that are F1 level, and that's where the schools tend to be, and the ride and drives. In the United States, there are racetracks very close to proximity of most of the cities. So what needs to happen in the Middle East is these cities, besides in Bahrain, in Dubai, there need to be closer tracks to each of the cities, say Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, or Oman. And anywhere that you can think of, there needs to be a track close to the metropolitan areas, because that's where you're going to find most of the students going to, or most of the people that own Audi or Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini. Whatever the case may be, they need tracks to run on rather than just up and down streets. And I think that's on the way. It's I believe it'll happen within the next 5 years. The American public tends not to focus on where someone has come from. Taking the case of Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan or Philip Nasser, people like that from Brazil who are of Lebanese descent. They're heroes here. So they the American racing fan tends not to concentrate on where somebody's from. It's just, do they do a great job? They're heroes here. And what we've discovered, what we found, is there are a lot of particularly Lebanese drivers. It seems to be somehow in the genetic makeup, or in the blood, or in the kidney, or something that just makes us want to drive racing cars. And I think eventually you're going to see that grow more and more. And all this depends on how long can we keep peace in the Middle East, and particularly Lebanon. Lebanon's come back up to where it's a peaceful place. So I think that once you see that start to happen in a consistent way, you're just going to see more Lebanese drivers over here.
The feeling that I get when I'm testing a car, if it's something, for instance, you can get into a car and look at it and just look around and check out everything in it and say to yourself, wow, this is a sex machine. And then at that point you start thinking about where you want to photograph it, the lighting, the mood that you want to see. It's great to get shots at golden hour and even past golden hour as the sun is setting and you're getting a lovely streak through the car and up the angle of the fenders and everything else, seeing the color, the way the sun reflects off of it. Those are sexy shots, and if the car makes you feel sexy, I try to make a sexy shot that goes with it. Each car has at least 3 great looks, and you're going to walk around that car and you're going to discover those great looks. And from that point, it's your job to capture it onto a digital image and then show it to your readers. But you have to do the walk around first. Look at it without actually working it. I think I'm going to be capturing the details and looking around and have that curious mind that is always wondering what something's doing, when, where, why, and how I have to photograph it and save it to a digital image or to whatever. The day that they bury me in the ground, that's the day that I'll probably end it.
I can drive in my head Lime Rock, drive in my head the old St. Pete street course, drive in my head Road Atlanta, Mid-Ohio, Phoenix, every single one of them. I know every turn, I feel it. I mean, I can even see certain blades of grass. They're not there anymore, but I can remember those blades of grass as being reference points.
مشاهدينا أشكركم على المتابعة. في النهاية أذكركم بصفحتنا على الفيسبوك المجلة شو. راسلوني على إيميل البرنامج المجلة@الحرة.com، وبلاقيكم الأسبوع المقبل بنفس الموعد.